Hello everybody, I am the Wasteland Viking, and welcome back to Warhammer 40k Gladius. So last time we learned a little bit more of how to, balance out our resources and how the cities work. So this time around, this episode, I want to get into the research bit and also the units bit. There's going to be a lot of information in this game. One thing about GW and Warhammer in general, 40k and or fantasy, in general, they like their lore, and that's one thing I appreciate about them is because of that fact. So there's going to be a lot of reading towards the lore and just different things like that. So let's click on one of the units here. Our Tactical Space Marine. All right, well, let's talk about outposts first. So, tiles with special resource features can be captured by moving a unit on them. This will construct an outpost, providing you with a small but important bonus to your resource output and giving the unit stationed there increased damage reduction and healing rate. Defend your outpost or they will be taken over by other factions or the Gladius wildlife. Alright. So let's, move them over to here. So how you move units is you can hold down and drag right click, or you could just right click to where you want them to go and they'll go there. Same thing with attacking units, you know, that also happens as well. So about the unit itself in general, so this is the Tactical Space Marine, of course. They have, you know, rotating models in there on the bottom left, but here's the close-up look of them. They look really cool. I really love the models in this game. One thing about Warhammer, about 40k that I enjoy a lot, is their just details to certain things. I like the bolt guns. I enjoy the armor a lot. The helmets, also the helmets are really cool. I'm not sure what mark or model of power armor they're using in this version. I don't know what it. Well, I mean, the game came out in 2018, so I'm guessing whatever things they have related to the 8th edition, I'm guessing that this is coming from, happens. You know, that's just the look that they have, and it's just really cool. And also, like the, I always forget what it's called, but the eagle, on their chest, I like that a lot with the skull and whatnot. But anyway, oh, that's really zoomed out. Let's have it a little closer. Not that close. Yeah, like that. I had it a little further out, but I enjoy the detail. So I'm going to keep it as detailed, and we don't need it super huge right now anyway. So we can rename the units if we want to, like the squads and things like that, if we want to, but I'm not going to worry about that. But our Tactical Space Marines, they are a versatile infantry unit. The cost there is the same thing as like the buildings that we talked about before. Takes 6 turns to make them, to produce them, 36 production, and also 40 requisitions. And they have 2 requisitions of upkeep. So part of the total up there of obviously the generation of requisition is dropped by 4 technically because each unit is a -2. So where an objective must be seized, tactical squads attack in a storm of gunfire and combat blades. Where the line must be held, these courageous warriors plant their feet, raise their weapons, and fight to the last. Armed with bolt guns and grenades, tactical squads are superbly versatile strategic assets. So that's a little detail about the unit itself. But here are the statistics. They have different things like that. Let's actually deselect and see if that does anything. Click on order units, see if that does anything. It actually pops up. I didn't mean to pop that up. We've already looked at that. And same thing with the wire weed. Order units. Okay, there we go. So they have 8 armor. Armor reduces the amount of damage taken from weapons and abilities. Each point of armor reduces the damage taken by 8% up to a maximum of 80%, but weapons and abilities ignore a number of armor points up to their armor penetration value. So here on their gun, this right here, their weapons, it'll show you the weapon that they have and also a melee weapon if they have it. But the bolt gun, times 5 because there are 5 units or 5 models in the unit. So the attributes of this gun does 1.5 damage, attacks of 1, parentheses times 5 because of, once again, 5 models in the unit. That is how, even on tabletop, that's how mathematically you do things. It has armor penetration of 1, so like let's say we, go up against Chaos Space Marines or something like that, which I'm guessing they'd have roughly about the same, maybe, types, amount of stats, the same stats. It would drop their armor to 7 instead of 8, and then the damage percentage wise, goes from there. So they have an accuracy of 8, which is a 67% chance to hit, and also they have a range of 2. Their traits, they have rapid fire, which increases the attacks at half range. So if they attack at 1 hex away in quote-unquote melee range or anything like that, it increases the attacks. On the tabletop version, it doubles the attacks. I'm not sure if it'll do it in here, but when we get to that point, I will see and verify if we get, if that happens. Or if it does more of like, it does a 25% increase or something like that, I don't know. But on the tabletop, it doubles it for rapid fire weapons. So the bolt gun, or bolter, fires small missiles known as bolts. Each self-propelled bolt explodes with devastating effect once it has penetrated its target. There are many variations of bolt guns, from the short-barreled bolt pistol to the Vulcan Mega Bolter, often mounted on Titans and other super heavy vehicles. I'm not sure if we get Titans in this game. Doesn't surprise me if we do. But yeah, so that's how armor works. Well, that's how the weapons work as related to armor, and also the armor penetration. That's what I wanted to get towards, goal wise anyway for that. So taken by each amount of armor reduces the damage taken by 8%. So we have, 8 times 8, 64%. I'm not very good with math at the top of my head. So 64. So 64% damage delivered to us, we actually ignore, which is really good. But obviously hit points, the amount of damage the unit can sustain before dying, naturally. Another system that a lot of wargaming games have on tabletop, and they try to implement it into video games, but sometimes it's a little more difficult, is morale, and things like that. Obviously, so the lower the amount of models are in a unit, the higher the chance it is for it to break or lose morale. But morale, we must not meddle with these Xenos artifacts, my lord. So the morale is the psychological state of the unit. If it drops below 66%, morale units become shaken, decreasing accuracy and increasing damage taken by 17%. Or if it's below 33%, morale units become broken, decreasing accuracy and increasing damage taken by 33%, which makes sense because whenever, obviously, you lose models in the unit, the amounts of damage to do anything with and stuff like that decreases. The chances to hit are a little bit different on tabletop anyway, but this is how they make it balanced in this sort of game. So you get actions. The amount of actions, including retaliations, the unit can perform. Using an action may consume all movement. So if you were to attack somebody, you lose your movement, of course. That's why it says it may consume all movement. There might be some units where that's a different rule, but yeah, so anyway, and then we've also got 3 movements. The number of tiles a unit can move through in 1 turn. Rough terrain requires more than a single movement point, and moving into a tile adjacent to an enemy ends movement, which makes sense as well, because tabletop, if you are less than an inch away, or If you're an inch or less away or closer to a unit, you can't do things like falling back. If you do, there are penalties towards that. You can't use ranged weapons in that range, and just things like that. So it makes sense that once you get up to that kind of thing, you're locked in there, sort of thing. And there's also levels. 0-3 experience, 2 death experience value. I don't know exactly what that means. I think they have to kill 2 models in the opposite unit to gain experience. I think that's how it works. But every level above the first increases the unit's hit points and damage by 5% and morale by 10%. So that'll be good. Obviously, that entails that the longer that the unit is staying on, staying in existence, pretty much, they become stronger very slowly and in small amounts, but they surely become stronger. We are the Emperor's Fist. Yes, that's true. But as they're sitting in idle, or even reactions to attacking or being attacked and things like that, sometimes those floating, text things just pop up, and it adds a cool thing to it. So this is an ability that they have called And They Shall Know No Fear. It is also an ability on the tabletop game where they can re-roll failed morale checks. But the unit cannot be broken by morale and is immune to fear. Some warriors refuse to surrender, fighting on whatever the odds. Very true. That is one thing about Space Marines. They keep fighting and fighting until the literal end. So yeah, we'll explore a bit. Move them. I don't know where to. I would like to stay kind of close. And back here behind us, we haven't explored that much, so I think I will actually do that. Certain terrain gives you bonuses and things like that, so we will move them over to the forest here. And there's an outpost here, which is good. So if we click on them again, they get the forest buff. So these green things are buffs, and I think if there are any red ones, obviously they're debuffs. But it's a lot by terrain. Certain ability that heroes give you and stuff like that. We'll get into that when we actually get to that point. But certain hero abilities can give you buffs and things like that as well. So the forests, they grant range damage reduction to infantry units. A minimum of 33% range to damage reduction, which is pretty good. So Gladius's fast-growing forests persist all year around. The vegetal growth stretching to the sky and blocking lines of sight. Gladius's plants may seem tree-like, but they're actually iron-hard, as they draw ores from deep under the planet's surface. So I like it how even on the terrain they give it its own, lore and stuff like that. A couple of other things that I forgot to mention. You can disband your unit, which helps if your economic numbers are having troubles, especially requisitions. Sometimes influence depending on what faction you are, and depends on the unit. And same with energy, all that stuff. Research isn't much related to that. It's just how quickly you research things. That's all this number is. Since we're at 0, it's going to take us longer to actually get research. That's another thing that we'll get into here in a little bit. But the thing that I was going with that is that it helps with your economic numbers if you need to make that happen. But other than that, this is a wargaming strategy game. You need numbers. You need resources to upkeep those numbers, yes, but you need the numbers. So disbanding, I'd say don't worry about it unless you have to economically actually do it. But also they have Overwatch, which is also another thing in tabletop. But attacks enemy units that enter the attack range. Yes, whenever in tabletop, whenever there's something called a charge phase. If anything with a ranged weapon, if it's in range and can do it when at the start of their charge, the opposing enemy can do Overwatch, where it was a small chance of it happening, but you could actually do some damage to an enemy unit that was going towards you. I mean, you had to roll a 6 on a 6-sided dice to make it happen, but still, it was a chance of that happening. But with this, if anything came in range of this model or this unit, 2 squares away, 2 hexes away, or tiles, I'll figure out how I want to call it. I think I'll call them tiles because that's the general term that it's been called on here. So if they're 2 tiles away, that unit can automatically shoot, but they can only do it once per turn against an enemy. So if there are 2 units rushing them, it will attack one of them, but it won't attack the other because obviously that's how the rules are. And there's also hold position. Holds position until engaged by an enemy unit. So they're fortified essentially, and they stay there until an enemy is within their range. And then obviously they shoot, and then it, lets go of that whole hold position. There's another one called hold position until healed. Holds position until fully healed. Units automatically heal if they have not taken damage and have full movement and action points remaining. Yes, they will automatically heal. Yeah, if they haven't taken damage or used any action points and things like that. But this unit heals at 10% per turn. And also, it's 0, so it doesn't, obviously they're full health, so it doesn't take any turns for them to heal. Or you could skip their turn if you have to. I try to keep my guys moving as much as possible. But yeah, anyway, so we moved all of our units. We learned a little bit of how some terrain works and things like that. Outposts, like what we saw here. Let's look at the buff on that. Outpost grants damage reduction and increases the healing rate for allied units. Grants ranged damage reduction to infantry units. So these guys are infantry units, like I said. And obviously there are going to be flying units, vehicles, things like that, where they don't get certain bonuses. Where they don't get, like, the bonuses for being in a outpost, except for the healing rate stuff and just things like that, damage reduction. So it has a minimum of 17% city damage reduction. Since it's going to be connected to the city, that's what it'll increase to. Plus 50% healing rate, which is really good. So if you held position for healing, it will increase that by, I think it's 20% instead, which is really good. Well, it's 50% healing rate, so it's actually 15%, not 20, because 20% is obviously 100% of 10. But also has a minimum of 70% ranged damage reduction. So that's good. But yeah, let's get into research. I think I'll be keeping it at this angle if I have to. Or, just things like that. You could also tell your units to, like, move. Like, let's say move there, but they won't move there until next turn. And that's like a held action. And also, every location has coordinates, of course. Because, I mean, that's just one. It's a tactical game, so of course numbers like that are a huge thing. I mean, to a certain extent. I can see it more in multiplayer if you're on the same team, if it helps. But we're not going to be doing that. Actually, yes, let's do that. Let's capture that. But they'll be moving to that location next turn. So let's exit out of them. And to exit out of things, you could just left click outside of the window and things like that, or onto the map, and it'll just be the way it is. All right, choose research. So research screen. The research screen presents your faction's unique technology trees. So yes, each faction has their own. They all have the same function, but they're named differently, and certain units, obviously, depending on your faction, has certain abilities and buffs and things like that. So begin by selecting a technology to research from tier 1, which it highlights this, which it's recommending to do, and I'm going to be doing that. So you must research 2 technologies from a tier to unlock the subsequent tier. So obviously, we need to have 2 of these researched before we can get into tier 2, and 2 tier 2s to get to tier 3, etc., and so on and so forth. You can speed up research by constructing additional research buildings in your cities. Note that all progress is lost when you change the currently researching technology. That is not a smart thing to do, obviously, but if you do it, there are consequences. So, all right. So we're going to be getting the Reclusium, or Reclusium. I think it's Reclusium. Building that produces heroes as well as generates influence and increases loyalty. So that's a good one to have. Influence is always good because that's what helps us with acquiring tiles, and also just things like that. So as far as like the number, like next to the book of the research book, 36, I'm still not sure what that number means. And that obviously goes on with this. And the more tech that you go up, the higher tech you go up, the more it costs to make it. But of course, I think when the more your research production, I guess, increases, or generation increases, the lower this number gets. So it'd be easier. Yeah, I think that's how it is. It's just easier to get, to that kind of stuff. Or that's how much science it costs to actually get it. I don't know. But we'll get Reclusium. Alright. So we could get our first heroes and things like that. And of course, it gives you the certain events and certain buildings that you're doing up here. So that helps out a lot. So let's end our first turn. Enemy turns. Ooh. What are those guys, you say? Alright, so operations. Space Marines are able to issue strategic and tactical operations by expanding influence. I'll get into combat here in a little bit. So one such operation is the deployment of a Fortress of Redemption. So this thing up here. A stationary unit that secures adjacent special resource features. Placement of Fortresses of Redemption is key for Space Marines to gather resources beyond their city's reach. So that's another cool thing. It's sort of like our own faction building that helps with our influence to a point. So to use it, deploy Fortress of Redemption. It has a cooldown of 10 turns, and its range of influence, for attacking, is of 1 tiles. Fortification that automatically gathers resources from adjacent special resource features, like the outposts or relics. That's another thing that we'll get into. And there are also artifacts. Those we'll get into when we cross them. But it costs 20 influence to do, and has an upkeep of 3 influence. So obviously our influence will drop from 13 to 10. But a Fortress of Redemption is a towering bulwark against the ravages of planetary invasion. Each is virtually impervious to conventional firepower, and the lower levels, bunker annexes and sub-crypts, can house entire platoons of battle-ready warriors. That's another thing you could do. For cities and the fortresses, you could actually have your units go into it, and it adds as an extra defense kind of thing. First used by the Dark Angels Legion during the days of the Great Crusade, they have since been used by every military force in the Imperium and proven invaluable to its defense. So the Dark Angels Legion. Sometimes, I think it depends on the era of which 40k, like the era of 40k you're talking about. From my understanding, legions are usually referred to a Chaos Legion rather than a Space Marine chapter. I'll have to do a little bit more research on that. I mean, it's just as simple as opening up, I only have the 8th edition codex, obviously. 9th edition is going to be coming out maybe sometime this year, I'm not sure. But I just open that up and kind of read what the differences are between the two. But the Great Crusade, there have been many Great Crusades, but anyway, so that's a totally different topic for obviously a different time, and not for this game. Maybe a game that's relevant to it, or things like that, or if I can have the information come at the top of my head, it'll happen, sort of thing. But anyway, so we can build this. actually right here. Well, obviously not right here, but like right here, for example. And then it will. I mean, it's exactly how the city did it. It does the exact same thing. So let's put it there. Um, but give the tile will give us +2 energy, and also any. Well, the buildings can't grow on the pipes, of course, but it will give us a +20% energy thing as well. So these are drop pods, which usually are represented by. So there we go. Fortress of Redemption. It has 10 armor, 32 health, 12 morale. I don't know why building. I mean, it's a unit in the game, so I mean, it's got to have the same stuff on it. It doesn't have any actions, no movement, because obviously it's been placed, and also it levels up as well. So it's weapons, twin linked las cannons. It deals 8 damage, only 1 attack because it's just a single model of the unit. Armor penetration of 6, so it's really good. Accuracy of 10, which is really good. 83% chance to hit, and also has a range of 3. Traits. Heavy, it reduces the accuracy after moving. And also 2-time twin linked, increases the accuracy, so that's why it's so good. It gets the single attack, but it's really good. Las weapons fire packets of explosive laser energy. The larger the gun, the more powerful the shot. Regardless of size, las weapons are incredibly reliable, making them favored tools of war throughout the Imperium. Yes, they are very common, especially amongst once you get into like the Astra Militarum, which the guardsmen or the Imperial Guard. That's their not so gothic, old gothic term, but yeah, it also traits. Heavy reduces the accuracy after moving, which makes sense because on tabletop, if you move with a heavy weapon, which I mean it's not smart to do that. If you move with a heavy weapon, I think you're to hit, so your to hit drops by 1 kind of thing. But fortifications, stationary and heavily fortified until that exerts control over adjacent outposts, and also has harvest resource tiles. Harvest resources from adjacent special resource features. So yes, this bit right here, it will produce the 2 energy, and also that tile gives 20% extra energy. See, the thing is that it doesn't let us build the buildings, but I think because of the fortress, what it does is that it actually gives +20% of the 2, I believe. I think, but we'll see how that goes. So order units. Let's get into some combat. So how this works is that we can move up to our maximum. I'm going to move here because, well, I mean, it's only really worth it against ranged weapons, but it's still somewhat of a good defense. So let's go there. Ooh, Ruins of Vol, which is right here. So these are Ruins of Vol in sight. Oh, there are. So we got in their range, so they were able to do Overwatch and deal some damage to us. It didn't kill us. It didn't kill any of our models, which is good. But anyway, so these units provide rewards for the first player exploring them. Some even provide powerful ancient items that can be later equipped by heroes to make them stronger or excel at specific encounters. So that's really cool. So terrain. Terrain affects units in a variety of ways. We already covered this, but this is what the tutorial is going to talk about. Forests and Imperial ruins have an increased movement cost for ground units and make it harder to see and fire across. Height differences may also prevent your units from having a clear line of fire. Tiles marked with red indicate enemies that can be attacked from your current position. So yeah, this right here, obviously you can see. So okay. Rapid fire. This unit has a rapid fire weapon equipped. Units with rapid fire weapons are able to cause much more damage at close range, but can still fire from further away. It might be worth moving closer before attacking. So we'll see what it officially does. So yes, these runes it does the same thing as outposts. Yes, the idea of them as you capture them, and also enemies can capture them as well from you and things like that, are the same rules. And yes, as you see here, it is considered an outpost when captured. But anyway, so we came here, we came into their range, which, let's look. Yeah, so these are Chaos Cultists. They're weak, but there are more of them. So they have auto pistols, which have no armor penetration, and things like that, and also close combat weapons. Oh, that's it. It doesn't say specifically what it is. It could be a chainsword. It could be lots of different things. A power, power sword, power axe. For cultists to have those is like not heard of at all. But as a range of 1, well, their pistols had a range of 1, so they were able to shoot us in Overwatch, which is fine. So here, let's see if it doubles. Okay. So it attacks of 1, which it normally does, but increases attacks at half range. So if you scroll over them, it gives you an attack estimate. So we're attacking against Chaos Cultists. We will do 9.2 damage against them because of a mix of our armor penetration to obviously base damage to their armor, which is really low. They have really low armor. So estimate 4 of 10 casualties. So 4 of their models will die. Yeah, so 5 attacks at 9.2 damage. Hold control to keep visible. Oh, okay, I see. And then hold Alt to show opponent attack. So when they attack us, that's actually a cool feature. I didn't look into that. I've never used it before. So if they were to attack us, estimated 1 of 5 casualties. They will only be doing 1.2 damage with their pistols, if they use their pistols, and also 1.8 with their melee. But anyway, so let's just attack them. I love the blood. Yes, Warhammer is very violent. It's really cool. I like 40k more than fantasy just because sci-fi, one of my favorite genres. There are aspects of 40k that are also considered horror. My 2 favorite genres to mix together, sci-fi, horror, especially if it's an RPG related one or a tactical game like this. I love it. If you saw my face right now, it has a face of deep pleasure, not in that way, but deep pleasure of just a nerd liking, the sci-fi horror stuff. I get damn near teary-eyed talking about it, of joy because it is so good. But anyway, so since we told this unit to move here, there's a thing here. Any unit that happens, it will do this: execute queued orders, and they will automatically move there, which is cool. It was already captured because of our Fortress of Redemption here, but it worked just fine. Alright, so Chaos Cultists discovered. If you click on them, it'll actually zoom to where it is, at. Oh, and then also, their compendium thing. So, about the Chaos Cultists. Mass infantry unit that can found cities and sacrifice itself to the dark gods. Yes, the Cultists of Chaos can be found in one form or another. Almost anywhere the Imperium has spread. Oh yeah, one form or another, at least anywhere the Imperium has spread. At first glance, they are indistinguishable from normal men, but under their clothes their flesh is tattooed and branded with sigils that hurt the eyes of any faithful who look upon them. When the Chaos Space Marines come to a planet, the true colors of the cultists are revealed. The powers of darkness are ever quick to promise glory, and even the lowliest initiate knows that to fight alongside such legendary warriors is to court the gaze of the gods. Alright, so one of the expansions, one of the DLCs you could get for this game are Chaos Marines, Space Marines, which obviously these produce from, and just things like that. But the thing is, with the game that I'm running a legacy version of it, the 1.2.6 patch, which added only the Tyranids. So anything beyond that, I don't have access to. Unless it's actually part of it. I don't know. I'll have to look at it a bit more. I know there's Space Marines, Necron, Orc, and probably Chaos. So I'm actually probably being very inaccurate about it. And we've also found the ruins of Vol, which we read it. So it's unclear what this is. Some time-worn structure rearing up from the shattered surface, made from the same impenetrable material as the rare artifacts that dot the planet. Much can be learned merely from studying it, and perhaps it still houses some secrets itself. So you can't build anything on it, but it gives you plus 20% research and plus 2 research, which is pretty good. Necron Tombs, which is this bit right here. Feature that allows Necrons to found a city on the tile. So deep beneath this innocuous patch of land lies a tomb city, where the Necrons have slept away the long millennia. To one who knows the correct protocols, it's a simple matter to begin the procedure of awakening it and its inhabitants from their dreamless sleep. I really like the Necrons. They are robotic in nature. They're automatons pretty much, but their aesthetic are very Egyptian, like ancient Egyptian, things like that. So they have like tomb cities and just things like that. I will get into them a bit more when I eventually play them. But anyway, and then also Chaos Cultists attacked. Tactical Space Marines -2, 1.2 damage. So that's that fight that happened here. But anyway, end turn. I'm not going to be going through all of these. If it's new, obviously I will do it. But yeah, so they didn't capture it for some reason. But their morale dropped, I'm pretty sure. Units. Every unit has a variety of statistics and attributes, traits, abilities, and weapons, each with their own ranges and effects. I wish they went in this earlier, obviously, because I've talked about a lot of tutorial stuff when it was relevant, which obviously it appears to be, later than what they planned. But quickly move. Okay, so some units might only have melee weapons, but quickly move through rough terrain, while others might have fear auras or unleash powerful artillery blasts. Move your mouse over the icons and buttons in the selection panel to find out more about the selected unit. Been there, done that. Thank you though. But yeah, so it's cool how it's just really cool how they put this game together. I'm a huge strategy tactical fan. It's actually one of my favorite genres to do. Oh, there are more of them. Okay. So we're not in range of them at all. So we're okay. What I think I'm going to do is have this unit kind of move up more towards them to help out. Because I don't know what it's going to be like and if they're going to be outnumbered or not. But anyway, so let's click on that unit. Let's attack. So we're going to be doing not as much damage as we did. Also, it does twice the damage, pretty much. Okay. Yeah, for the rapid fire. But we're not going to be doing as much damage because we're not the half distance in between. But obviously we can still shoot, which is really cool. Well, let's order our cities. So it finished doing the acquiring tile bit here. Alright, so infantry building. There are free building slots in the city. An opportune time to make plans to expand your army. Begin by constructing an infantry production building. Click the blinking building button and select a city tile with an empty building slot to start construction there. There is still, this will take several turns to complete. So yes, their first infantry building is the Apothecarian, building that produces infantry as well as generates research and increases loyalty. So that's good. Yes, 6 production will be added to the city, I'm guessing. It adds 2 research and loyalty of 1, which is good. It will cost us 6 turns to make, 36 production, and 50 requisitions. So we have 90, which is all right, but yeah, an upkeep of 2. So the Apothecarian provides medical support for wounded battle brothers and plays a vital role in the elevation of an aspirant to a space marine. Both of these functions pale into insignificance against the Apothecarian's other purpose, the preservation of its chapter's unique gene seed from which new Space Marines are created. If the gene seed is lost, so too is the chapter. The gene seed, bit more lore than what I expected to kind of talk about, but the gene seed it's a certain gland that there are also other glands and organs that are given to the Space Marines to become what they are. And all of those are tied in with the Primarch of the chapter. Every single chapter has their own Primarch, which is like literally the father Marine, Astartes, to make the chapter happen. That the God Emperor has created in, I think it's like he had an own lab in the Himalayas, I believe it was, to make these Primarchs and things like that. And from there, the Space Marines are made. And yeah, it's literally a gene seed. The reason why the chapters are good at what they do sometimes is because of their gene seed, of their Primarch, who were good at certain abilities, certain enemies that could be fights against, different things like that, certain knowledges, or just knowledge in general, is related to the gene seed. So that's how that stuff works. But anyway, I'm going to leave the episode here. We have encountered our first enemies, and of course, by great example, the Loyalist versus Heretic dynamic. So we fought against some cultists. We have gathered a few more resources. We put down our first official building, which is, what we just talked about. And hopefully we can start building our army and go from there in that regard. Yeah, I'm really excited for this. And also we started our first research, the Reclusium. And yeah, please comment what you think of this game so far, what you like about it, and just things like that. Start a Warhammer discussion if you want. I will try to keep up with the comments, or I will keep up with the comments and reply when I can with information that I have. If I have to do some research, I will look it up and reply, or just be like, I have no idea, let me look into it, kind of thing. But yeah, and also like and subscribe. That'll help me out a lot. It will also mean a lot. I'm having lots of fun playing all these different games and playing them for you guys and things like that. And it's lots of fun. It's something that I honestly didn't think I would ever do in my lifetime, but things have happened, and this is where I'm literally sitting, and it's lots of fun. I'm really enjoying it. And also share this video with any of your Warhammer friends. We're making our own chapter. We are making a Adeptus Astartes chapter, which is really cool, and it's our own as well, which makes it even more fun. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.